to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie. It will be a great show for you today. First topic we're going over is a preview of the upcoming Subway Series that will be happening tonight, so we'll be going over that. After that, we'll be going over the Padres placing Fernando Tatis Jr. on the injured list, Jarren Duran's breakout season for the Red Sox, Patrick Sandoval being out for the year for the Angels, and some other news around the league. Now, before we do all that, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We took in a number of questions from viewers to ensure that your question does get read on the air. Please use the link at GSMCpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get into the show for today. All right, so as I said, the first topic we'll be going over is going to be about the Subway Series. It's happening tonight, so I just want to give a little bit of a preview of it and talk about it. So, yeah, let's get into it. I am born and raised in New York City, so Subway Series is always something that I love and enjoy. And it's always just a great time watching. As a baseball fan, you always have a lot of fun, just watching the game, watching the rivalry. It's always electric. And, I love the aesthetic of it as well, just being able to take the train being able to take the subway from the Bronx to Queens or Queens to the Bronx and just all around the city. And it's just a very fun series. And I do think it has lost some of the mystique that it once had. I don't think the Mets and Yankees are necessarily as big of rivals as they once were before. I think that they're, with the struggles the Mets have had over the last few years, with the Yankees, how well they've done over their franchise, I kind of think some of the, mystique of it is gone. But at the same time, it still is always very cool to me. It still is always a great series to watch as a baseball fan. So I'm looking forward to it. Always am. And yeah, I'm very excited to watch it. So let's get into it. So right now, heading into the series, both these two teams are in very, very different places. The Mets overall are on fire, having won, I believe, their three straight series versus the Padres, Rangers, and Cubs. Have done very, very well. Have been on an insane run since, of course, Grimace throughout the first pitch. We all know about what's going on in the Mets right now. What they're really using as their rallying cry with Grimace. So they're doing really great. Still are on the outside looking in of the playoff picture. Are 1.5 games out of the wild card right now. A very close together, compacted, and a wild card. So 1.5 games isn't really the same as before. It looks like a good amount out because of all the teams ahead of them, because you have to go through all these teams. But still, they've been doing very well as of recently, and they've just looked much, much better this past run than they really have before. Now the Yankees are in an entirely different situation. They are 3-7 over their last 10 games. For the first time all year, they are genuinely struggling and not doing well. They still are one of the best teams of baseball, of course, having one of the best records in the entire league, still leading the AL East by 2 games, still having the second best record in the league. But they are struggling right now. Again, they're 3-7 in their last 10. They got swept by the Orioles. They lost the series before as well. So overall, they are definitely struggling, again, for the first time this year. And other than that, though, they still are a great team. I mean, yes, they have done bad recently, but we still know all the talent they have on this team, all the stars. And yeah, even though they are struggling a little bit, I mean, we know about this team this year, how well they have done overall. So really, I wouldn't be worried. I do think it is just a little bit of a rough patch that every team goes through, even with how good you are. So they've done a great job this year, and I don't really foresee that changing. So looking at the pitching matchups for this series, and then we'll go over who has the advantage. For today, it will be Gerrit Cole versus David Peterson. Cole making his second start of the year after making his first start against the Orioles around a week ago after being out for most of the season with a shoulder injury he sustained in spring training. David Peterson now making another start for the Mets after an okay season so far this year. An ERA around 4 has just been an okay pitcher, whether it's been in the bullpen or the rotation. Luis Gil will be starting on Wednesday for the Yankees, and Sean Manaea will be playing him. So definitely, an important start for Gil here. Has had a great season with the Yankees, of course, but will now be playing in a very, very high-profile game versus the Mets. So should be very exciting to see what will happen with Gil and how he does end up playing. So for this, I would definitely say the Yankees have the advantage in the pitching matchups. I mean, even though Gerrit Cole's coming on his second start for the entire year, he's still Gerrit Cole. He's still the guy we all know. He's still the best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion. And the one thing that is going to be interesting to look at is that he has been roughed up by the Yankees a lot in his career. Sorry, by the Mets in his career. His ERA versus the Mets is the highest ERA he has versus any team throughout his career. So it should be very interesting to follow, see if his struggles versus the Mets do continue once again. David Peterson, again, is a fine pitcher, just not at the level of a Gerrit Cole. Again, it is a different kind of cold because it's only his second start of the year. But at the same time, we still know how good he is. We still know who Garrett Cole is. We still know that name. So overall, the Yankees definitely have the up when it comes to the pitching matchup. They definitely have the advantage for Game 1. And Game 2, I would say the same thing with Gio versus Manaea. Again, Manaea has been a fine signing for the Mets. Frankly, I expect him to be a little better for the Mets. If you remember my shows from the preseason, I did say that I loved the Manaea signing for the Mets, and that I thought he was a great signing. And I thought, he showed a lot in his second half with the Giants, inventing a new pitch with his repertoire. But unfortunately, he has really not worked out that way with the Mets and has not done that great. He still has been solid with an around a 4 ERA, but definitely has not been as good as we said, as of course, he hasn't gone as deep into games as we'd like, so definitely hasn't been as good as I expected. And Gio has just been outstanding for the Yankees this year. I mean, right now is probably the AL Rookie of the Year favorite with Mason Miller. Has just done absolutely incredible and an amazing year so far. Been an unsung hero of this Yankees rotation, and they definitely have the advantage here in Game 1 and Game 2 for the pitching rotation. So the Yankees already have the one up there, but should be interesting again. Will be very interesting to see if Manaea does perform well against the Yankees, and how Peterson performs against them as well. So both teams do have some storylines going into this as well with players. First of all, for the Mets, they did just play Starling Marte on the injured list today. We knew that would happen yesterday, as reports came out that he is going to need 15 days of rest for his sore knee, which he has really been battling all year. It's really just become a problem now. So that it is unfortunate that he is going to be out for around 15 days. Has been heating up the past few weeks in the Mets, so it will be a big loss. It seems like Tyrone Taylor will take most of his time out there in right field. They did call up Ben Gamel to be the fourth outfielder now, so I assume Gamel and Tyrone will split time there in right field. Of course, have Bader and Nimmo in the other outfield spots. The Mets also do have a lot of former Yankees on this team, with, of course, their manager, Carlos Mendoza, coming over from the Yankees as he was their bench coach last year. Starting center fielder, Bader, played for the Yankees, of course. You also have Luis Severino, starting pitcher, who was supposed to play versus the Yankees, but they decided to scratch him from that start, starting 2 days before versus the Cubs. So there are a good amount of former Yankees on this Mets roster. And, yeah, it should just be very, very interesting to see how the Mets do end up playing. Also, of course, they are going to be missing Edwin Diaz. Was my first segment yesterday, how he did get suspended for an illegal substance violation, and kind of just the hypocrisy and all he was having with that. But if you want to go check out my segment on that, please go check out my show yesterday. But definitely will be a big storyline here to follow. If the Mets have a 1 or 2 run lead when they go into the ninth, and you've got to face the 2, 3, 4 batters of this Yankees team, who are you really going to put in the ninth? Are you going to really trust Drew Smith with that job? Are you going to trust Jake Diekman? Daniel Nunez, he's been great, but are you really going to trust him? So it's going to be very interesting to see who the Mets do call upon for their closer role, not just in this series, but for the next 10 days while Diaz is out. So that should be a very interesting storyline for the Mets, and just is very, very unfortunate and awful timing that Diaz is going to be out for the series. And just, I think they won't be shot themselves in the foot with this one. The Subway Series always gets publicity, and not having one of the biggest stars on both teams in Edwin Diaz be able to play, I really do think they dropped the ball. I just think it was a bad job by them, and I don't think it was the correct decision. But again, I talked more about it yesterday on my show, so if you want to go check it out, please go ahead. Also, the Yankees did end up making some roster moves, trading for J.D. Davis of the A's to now play a platoon role with them. Davis is, of course, a former Met who played with them for a significant amount of time. I think it was either 2.5 years or 3 years. So that will be fun. His first time back in Citi Field, I believe, so it should be interesting to see if he does fare. But yeah, was traded for from the A's, had an okay season with the A's, 98 weighted runs created plus, but really was mainly to be a platoon bat. Again, is a righty, so he hits lefties well. Should platoon with Ben Rice at first base, also can play third, can play some corner outfield, so just brings a lot of versatility for this Yankees team. And again, is a nice platoon bat as well, so should bring a lot of interesting abilities here to this Yankees team. I thought the trade was fine, but again, obviously they did shake the roster up with, of course, Stanton going on the IL, so he definitely will be missed this series. His big bat I believe, is the best hitter in Citi Field history. His years with the Marlins when he played there, he was incredible. His years with the Yankees, of course, as well, because they play there at least 2 times a year. So that will be a big bat that the Yankees do end up missing with how well Stanton has played versus the Mets in his career. But both teams have losses, and it'll be very interesting to watch the series as we go into it. We'll be having a lot of fun watching it tonight as a Mets fan, who will, of course, be rooting for my team. But just looking forward to some good baseball in general, and very excited to watch Garrett Cole in his second start and see how he does perform as well. So, yeah, that is it for our first segment here, talking about a bit of a Subway Series preview going into the game for tonight and tomorrow night. Moving into our second segment here, which is going to be talking about Fernando Tatis Jr. He did hit the IL for the San Diego Padres, so we'll be talking about his injury and what is going on there. So, yeah, we'll be talking about that, and we'll see you after the break. So, thanks, and bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows where 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment, which is going to be talking about Fernando Tatis Jr. and him going to the IL for the Padres and the impact it is going to have on their team. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers that ensure that your question does get read on the air. Please use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. Read is of the show. It really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into the show for today. All right, so our second segment is, of course, going to be talking about Fernando Tatis Jr. and his injury for the San Diego Padres and just the impact it is going to have on their team. So let's get into it. So, of course, Tatis was having a really, really fantastic season with the Padres. When I made my All-Star ballot vote, I did end up having him as my starting right fielder for the game, which was just fantastic overall this year with the Padres. Has a 139 weighted runs created plus, which just was really, really great, and was continuing to be the Tatis we all know. You know, hadn't been at his best the past few years. 2022, of course, missed the entire season with a boatload of injuries. 2023 was good, but wasn't as good as you'd expect a player of Tatis to be, a guy who's getting paid like he is. So definitely there needed to be some improvement this year, and he has done exactly that. Been very, very good, and has been one of the big reasons why the Padres have been really good and have been a team that I have been looking forward to watch this entire year. Now, Tatis was placed on the injured list with a stress reaction in his leg. Apparently, he had been battling through it the entire year, so it wasn't something new. It just got to a point where the Padres and Tatis said, it was enough. I can't battle through this pain anymore. It's genuinely affecting how I'm playing right now. So it was time for him to go in the IL, and that is what would end up happening here for Tatis. So, obviously will impact the Padres a lot. I mean, this is their starting right fielder. This is the heartblood of their team. When he's going, the Padres are going, and they've had a lot of injuries this year, so having another one to one of their star players really is very unfortunate. I mean, you've already had Xander Bogaerts go on the injured list. Machado's been kind of fighting injury all year. Darvish, Joe Musgrove have been fighting injury all year. So losing another one of your stars, another one of your franchise icons to the injured list this year for the Padres is not great. But, and they still are having a good, solid season and still are a team I really like. Obviously, I think right now they probably are overall going to be very close to finishing in the wild card. Again, I did my prediction a few days ago, just preliminary, and I thought I had them very close to the Mets for the 6th wild card. I did not pick in the Mets, but I still think the Padres are a great team. Again, starting rotation has been very good, especially with the addition of Dylan Cease. It hasn't been very good, I should say. That was the wrong choice of words, but it has been very solid, and there are still a lot of good pieces here. Again, when Darvish, when Musgrove come off the injured list and become better, they are going to end up doing really well. So, overall, there is a lot of talent on this Padres team, starting out with Tatis, with how good of a player he is. And, yeah, if I'm a Padres fan, it does, it is unfortunate. It seems like Tatis is going to be out for a significant amount of time as well. It seems like he's going to be out much past the All-Star break, so probably maybe 1 or 2 months, I'd say. So it really is unfortunate, but at the same time, it's got to happen. And I think Tatis with injuries is just going to be something that he deals with the rest of his career. It seems like he is just going to be a guy that has a lot of injuries throughout his career, and it is unfortunate, but that's the way it is, and you can't really blame him. I mean, what's he supposed to do? It's just how his body reacts. So it is unfortunate, but that is what is going to happen with him. So looking at the Padres I still think they're a really fantastic team. I still think this team has a ton of talent on it, and I still think there is a lot to like. Again, the rotation has a lot of great pieces with Cease, of course, with Michael King, with Matt Waldron, with Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove, who of course are on the injured list. Should be back relatively soon, but we're not sure what that is going to look like. Both have been on and off the entire year, so there are some rumblings from Padres fans I've seen on social media that he may need to get just elbow surgery, so that would be very unfortunate, but hopefully that is not the case, and hopefully it's not as major as fans are expecting it to be. But again, overall, I still think this team has a ton of talent, a lot of great players on this team. Again, with the offense, you of course have Luis Campusano, Fernando Tatis before he got hurt, Machado, Jake Cronenworth. You have Ha-Seong Kim, Jurickson Profar, who's been absolutely outstanding this year, the great rookie Jackson Merrill, nice bullpen arm in Jeremiah Estrada, Robert Suarez, who hasn't been the best this year, but still is a good player, and I still have a lot of hope for him. So, yeah, a lot to like still on this Padres team. A lot, if you're a fan, you can look at it and say, yeah, that's still a great team, still a fantastic team I like to root for. So, overall, if I'm a Padres fan, I'm still excited about where my team is going. It is unfortunate what did happen with Tatis. Now, looking overall in the aspect of the National League and seeing where the Padres do fit, it will be interesting because I don't think they're better than the Phillies, the Dodgers, or the Braves. And then, it gets a little bit of iffy teams. Do you think they're better than the Diamondbacks? Do you think they're better than the Mets, the Cardinals? Personally, I think they're better than the Cardinals. I think they're pretty even with the Diamondbacks and the Mets. I think those three teams are really, in my opinion, the three teams that do stand out in this crowd of NL teams for the two wildcard spots. Because most of us are assuming that 1 is going to be the Phillies, 2 is going to be the Dodgers, 3 is going to be the Brewers, and 4 is going to be the Braves. It just seems like that is what's going to happen for the rest of the year. So if the Padres really, they need to do something to make them stand out with this horde of teams. And, A.J. Preller has been a very, very aggressive general manager these past few years. I mean, throughout his entire tenure, actually, is what I should say. So if the Padres do have a need, I have no doubt that he's going to go out and get it. There was an interesting question proposed in an article I read, I forgot which one, that how is the death of the great owner Peter Seidler going to affect the way that the Padres do conduct business? The trade deadline, because everything we knew about Seidler was that he badly wanted to bring a championship to San Diego, but unfortunately, obviously passed away before he could, and just did not have any problem throwing money around. Basically gave Preller all the access to his money in the world and say, just go crazy with it, do whatever you want. That probably is one of the reasons why the Padres were in such a bad financial situation this offseason, why they had to trade Juan Soto. But it is what it is, and you do these moves, you know what the future is going to hold. So it is going to be an interesting situation to see if the new ownership group does let Preller have the same amount of freedom as he did have with Peter Seidler. It is going to be something that I am watching, seeing if Preller is able to trade for the amount of players he's usually able to trade for. So we'll definitely have to end up seeing. But overall, if you're the Padres, you do have some needs. I think a starting pitcher is a need. You definitely need a reliever, maybe even a bat. So just really any player you can get, and I think there are a lot of needs on this Padres team that can make them better. And an article came out today saying that the White Sox were scouting a few teams' farm systems much more heavily than others, and one of the teams, part of it, were the Padres. Now, I did a whole segment on how the Padres were very interested in Garrett Crochet and why a deal would make sense for both sides. So I still think that, again, I think Crochet would be a perfect fit for this Padres team. They need a starter. Crochet's not just a guy you're getting for the now, but getting for the future as well, as he has more talent because he is so young. So I think that overall Crochet would be a great fit for this White Sox team and would make a lot of sense here if you would like to add him. Also, Tommy Pham. I think a package deal of Crochet and Pham to the Padres would make a lot of sense. Pham, of course, has history with the San Diego Padres, playing there for a few years. But adding a corner outfielder for this team would make a lot of sense, especially with Now, Tatis being out for a significant amount of time, and the amount of hitting talent you would have in your team is insane if you do end up adding Pham. I know they've shown interest in him in the past as well after letting him go. So I think a package of Crochet and Pham would be very interesting. But obviously the White Sox are expecting some kind of noise with the Padres here, are scouting their farm system very heavily. The Padres do have a great farm system. Just I'm not sure what the level of aggressiveness they will have with giving up some of their top prospect like DeVries or Salas or Snelling or Lesko. So it will be interesting again to watch what the Padres do end up doing this deadline. But I think the Tatis injury might give them a little more of a boost to say, hey, we gotta trade for someone here. We gotta make sure we're still in this race, because a lot of people thought the Padres would just use this year as kind of a retool year, get everything back on track with the financials wise and all that. But no, they used the top prospect they got in that Soto trade and flipped him to get Dylan Cease, a win-now pitcher. And Cease has been absolutely outstanding with the Padres, so the trade has worked out. It's just, how good are the Padres really is the question we have to ask. So they'll definitely be a team I'm watching for the rest of the year, and I'm very, very interested to see what is going to end up happening with this Padres team and what overall is going to be the situation that does end up happening here with this Padres team, and what they do at the deadline, what the overall rest of the season looks like, and how they do handle this Tatis injury. So yeah, that is our second segment here, talking about the Fernando Tatis Jr. injury for the Padres and him going to the IL. Moving into our third segment here, which is going to be talking about Jarren Duran and his breakout season for the Boston Red Sox, what's been clicking for him, how well he's been doing, and the impact he is having on his Red Sox team. So yeah, we'll be going over that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, which is going to be talking about Jarren Duran and the Boston Red Sox and his breakout season he has had with the team, the impact that it is going to have on them, and what he's done this year already. So yeah, let's get into it. So the Red Sox have been one of the biggest surprises of the entire year for this baseball season. I've talked about them a few times on the show, but really haven't gone in depth yet, but hoping to do that eventually. But today, just focusing on one of their players. But overall, the Red Sox were not a team I really had as, really big on my radar as a team that would be competitive. I talked about them in the offseason, how I thought that they had to go out and get a big piece here, whether that was in free agency or the trade market. I did think they needed a big piece, more specifically to the pitching rotation. And, they just had a very underwhelming offseason, talking about it and seeing it. They said they would be all in with their new general manager after shockingly firing Chaim Bloom at the end of last year, a guy I thought would be a long-term piece in Boston. Obviously didn't really work out there. So I really did think they would be all in this offseason. I did think they would end up signing a big starting pitcher. I thought Jordan Montgomery made the most sense out of anyone who lives in Boston in the offseason. Apparently his wife works in the area. They needed a big starting pitcher. He had just won a World Series for the Texas Rangers. I thought it made all the perfect sense in the world. And they just didn't sign him. They never really got close. They were not willing to give the long-term contract to him. And I just thought, okay, they're not really all into it. They're just going to be very mediocre this year. That's kind of it. That's what we have to expect with them. And they've been pretty good this year. I will say I've been very surprised. And yeah, they've just been really great. They're third in their own division, above teams people expect to be better than them, like the Rays and the Blue Jays. They're right now in the wild card race. They have the third wild card spot on lock right now, with the Royals slowly behind them. But yeah, they've done really fantastic this year, and a lot of it has to do with players outperforming their expectations, and one player mainly is Jarren Duran. Duran was a big-time prospect for the Red Sox throughout these past few years, came up for 2 years, and really did not do well, was not fitting in with the Red Sox, was really not hitting well, was not playing defense either, just kind of being a bust, and it looked like that was the road that he would go down. But things changed for him last year. He ended up playing a good amount of time there, 102 games with them, 382 plate appearances, had a weighted runs created plus of 120, WAR of 2.5. So there was a lot to like going off of last year with Duran. I think a lot of people maybe thought that it was potentially a fluke with him, that he wasn't really going to keep it together over a full 162 season. His BABIP was pretty high. His K percentage wasn't great. Walk percentage wasn't great. So I think a lot of people expected him to could kind of come back down to earth the next year if the Red Sox did end up keeping him, not really end up being a big piece of this Red Sox team. But frankly, he's been a big piece of this Red Sox team. He's shown to be the Red Sox long-term answer at center field, most likely. And yeah, he's done pretty fantastic this entire year. You look at his stats this year, and they really are great. So far, he has a weighted runs created plus of 132. Also, after that, you look at his batted ball percentages as well as StatCast. So his max exit velocity is 113, which is up from last year. His barrel percentage is up 3% from last year, which is significant. His hard hit percentage is up from last year, so he's doing very well in that regard. And also, his BABIP's pretty high, like I said, but he's very fast. He plays defense well, so it's not like he's some slow guy who's just getting lucky. No, it's something that is sustainable, I think, and Duran brings a big skill set, I'd say. I think that, he's a good power-hitting, contact-hitting, fielding speed center fielder. He's very dynamic in that way, and has just done a really great job in this Red Sox lineup, and is being, I think, one of the big reasons why the Red Sox have been so good this year. I think Duran really has done fantastic, and overall has just been really, really great. So, yeah, I think that Duran has just been one of the biggest reasons why the Red Sox have exceeded expectations so much this year. And I'd say, honestly, one of the biggest surprises of the entire year as well, just from my thoughts. This was not someone I really had on my radar whatsoever as a big piece of this team, but with a lot of adversity at this Red Sox team, with injuries before the season started, an underwhelming offseason, Duran has proven to be a huge piece of this team, and it's just been really, really fantastic. So, again, his stats are doing very well, and we look at this Red Sox team, where they are, and the impact Duran has had. I think it's just been really, really great. This Red Sox team, again, is very much in this wild card race, are in the third spot right now, are very close to the Royals. It seems like they're really the two teams battling out for the last wild card spot, them, the Twins, and some other teams as well, like the Yankees and Orioles, obviously defending the division. But, yeah, just has done really, really fantastic this year, and has been a big piece of this surprising Red Sox team. So, an overview of the Red Sox right now, they again have exceeded expectations, and it's because of players like a Jarren Duran, who has done much better than people expected him to be. Also, pitching rotation. Tanner Houck has been someone that's been really, really fantastic this entire year, was someone I had kind of written off as a big piece of the Red Sox team, but has done really, really great, has been a fantastic pitcher for them, and has just been such an amazing, amazing piece to this team. So, that's also been helping them. Also, just overall, their pitching staff, not just how with guys like Nick Pivetta, guys like Garrett Whitlock, who you don't really expect to do anything. You kind of just expect them to be mediocre pitchers. Have done very well this entire year, and have just been big, big pieces for this Red Sox team that has been a lot better than most people expected. So, yeah, overall, it's been a very exciting year for this Red Sox team and Red Sox fan base. There's a lot more to like about this team than maybe people would have expected the first start of the year. So, yeah, from a Red Sox fan, I'm very happy with what's happening right now. And there's a lot to like if you are a Red Sox fan, and a lot to be proud of going into the future as well. I also think that their future with the hitting core also looks very exciting. You have guys like Cedeno Rafael who come up and been very good. Marcelo Mayer is also a player that is going to come up soon, and I think is going to be an absolute monster. Also, Kyle Teal, someone that is going to be very good as well in the future. It will be just interesting to see where he plays. but is a top prospect, first round pick from last year, and I think should be up relatively soon and be a monster with them. Connor Wong has been someone else that broke out this year. Obviously was a big part of the Mookie Betts trade and has finally lived up to the expectations I think a lot of people expected to have for him. So yeah, overall, if I'm a Red Sox fan, I'm very excited with what's happened this year. I'm very hopeful for my future of this team, and there's a lot of pieces here that I didn't expect to be long-term that now look like they are going to be big pieces for the future. Also, the trade deadline is coming up, so it is going to be very interesting to see what will happen with this Red Sox team. You do have some players that could end up being great trade bait if you do want to kind of sell. Tyler O'Neill is someone I have not mentioned throughout this segment for some reason, but obviously came over in a small trade with the Cardinals this year. Needed a change of scenery, and the Red Sox needed a corner outfielder, so they got O'Neill, and he has been absolutely fantastic with the Red Sox. Really has revitalized his career. Only has a year remaining on his contract. Has been absolutely fantastic, but could look to be trade bait if the Red Sox do want to capitalize off it and don't see a long-term future. That could be it, but again, O'Neill's been a big part of this Red Sox team. Kenley Jansen, of course, he's a guy that might be traded even if the Red Sox are trying to do well. It seems like both player and team are looking for a way out of their relationship. It doesn't seem like Jansen is enjoying being a Red Sox right now, so I think he could be traded anyways. But yeah, the Red Sox are in for a very interesting trade deadline because, simply put, I don't think they expect to be in this position right now. I don't think they expected to be this good, and I don't really think they expected to have the team be as impressive as it has been. So overall, if I'm a Red Sox fan, I'm very, very excited for the future of this team, very excited for this year, and very hopeful for what's going on now. I mean, there finally is something to like if you are a Red Sox fan. That hasn't been there really since that playoff run in 2021. So yeah, very exciting times here in Boston, and it should just get better. And there's also a potential for them signing someone big in free agency in the offseason. They have some money coming off the Bucks. Trevor Story's contract's turned into a disaster, but overall, I still think there's a lot of ways they can look to improve this roster. I think Corbin Burns, getting him would be a great fit for this rotation. Adding him into your young staff with Houck, with Whitlock, with Brian Bayo, who hasn't done great, but I still think very highly of. So yeah, very exciting year for the Red Sox. Great job they've done, and Jarren Duran has been really, really fantastic and been a big part of this Red Sox team and at the forefront of why they have exceeded so many expectations and why they have been very good. I clowned them before the season for having that Netflix crew follow them around this entire year because I didn't think they would be very good, but who's laughing now? I mean, they've done really well, and now they have someone to document it for the entire year. Do I think they're going to win the World Series? No, but at this point, they should make the playoffs, do pretty well, and be a surprise team. So props to them, and props for what they've done this year and what the future looks like there in Boston. So that was our third segment here, talking about Jarren Duran and the Red Sox and his breakout season, how it has affected them. Moving into our fourth segment here, which is going to be talking about Patrick Sandoval and his injury for the Angels and being out for the year. Overall, just talking about the Angels as well. Haven't talked about them a good amount on this show. So yeah, we'll be talking about them, and we'll see you after the break. So thank you, and bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about Patrick Sandoval and his injury for the rest of the year with the Los Angeles Angels, and just overall talking about the Angels as well. I really have not talked about the Angels much since Mike Trout got hurt, or in a small part of my power rankings, just because there really hasn't been much to talk about. But with Sandoval getting Tommy John and being out for the year, I did want to dedicate some time today to talking about Sandoval and just the Angels as well. A very interesting team, and it will be very interesting to watch for the rest of the year. So yeah, let's get into it. So news did come out, I believe it was last night, that Patrick Sandoval would end up getting Tommy John surgery for the Angels, and that it would be the route that happened. he is going to be out until at least 2026. So of course he's missing the rest of this year, the rest of next year as well. So obviously significant blow to this Angels team. Sandoval Moore was a guy who was looking to be a big-time trade piece for some teams. Doesn't have the best stats, but again has kind of a live arm, has a lot of great stuff, and maybe that's why he got Tommy John. But has been a guy that really has not lived up to expectations ever since he came up to the big leagues. But a lot of teams still like the potential he shows, and with pitching being at such a thin amount at this deadline this year, I mean every team needs pitching, so of course no one has pitching. So Sandoval was looking to be one of the biggest pieces at this deadline, potentially being moved, potentially being talked about, but of course now is not going to end up being moved considering Tommy John. So yeah, an interesting situation here for the Angels and unfortunate injury for them. But yeah, let's just talk about it and also talk about the Angels as well. So looking at Sandoval this year, he had thrown 79 innings, had a K per 9 at 9.15, up from last year. His walk per 9 was down from last year as well at 3.95, which is still a lot. I mean, walking almost 4 players per 9 is pretty bad, but better than last year. Quick question from the comments, actually, so we'll go to that. He said, who do you like tonight, Yankees or Mets? So for tonight, I think I'm going to end up going with the Yankees. I just think with all the momentum that is happening with them, they've been pretty bad as of recently, losing 7 out of their last 10, going 3-7 in their last 10. So I do think they're going to be looking a little lively tonight with Garrett Cole on the mound as well, his second start. I do think they'll end up getting the W, but the Mets have been really good as of recently as well. So I also think that there is going to be a good game tonight overall, and I think that both these teams are going to end up being a fight. But I do think the Yankees pull it out just for the pitching advantage. I think Cole is a significantly better pitcher than Peterson, and I think they're going to be doing really, really well today just because they want to make sure they do better than what they have done these past 10 games and being embarrassed by the Orioles. So going back to Sandoval now, though, again, his walks per 9 were down from last year, so I think that overall there is a lot of potential here with this arm. You look at his ERA, it is at 4.11, which is, again, not great. He had 2.91 last year, so it's worse than last year, obviously. His expected ERA is also worse at 4.70. His FIP is at 4.18. So also, not great, but again, I think his fastball slider combination is very nice. Some good off speed as well. So I still think there's a lot to like here if you are a team with Sandoval. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to trade for him, of course, but Sandoval just is a guy that really has a live arm, was never able to put it together, and this year was really a big part of that as well. So going back to another question from the comments here, Yankees can't hit lefties, Mets win 3-2. That's fair. I do think they should be improved with lefties now. J.D. Davis coming in as a trade guy from the A's, he should help with the lefties. But Peterson also isn't the greatest pitcher, so I do think that there is lefties, and then there's lefties who aren't that great, like David Peterson. But again, should be an exciting game. I think both teams are really fantastic, and I'm just very, very excited to end up watching it. So with Sandoval, I think him being out for this amount of time really is going to be significant, and it is going to be something that really does affect the Angels here. Obviously, the Angels aren't going to be competing this year, but looking towards the future, I do think they want to compete sooner rather than later. If not, they probably would have forced out Mike Trout by now, but there still is some young pieces being grown here, like Logan O'Hoppe, like Nolan Shanuel, Mickey Moniak, Nelson Rada, Zach Neto. So there are some good hitting pieces here, and just the problem has been pitching for them throughout Trout's entire tenure and just with this franchise for the last few years. And with when one of your young pitchers do go down, who has shown a lot of potential in the past few years, it is unfortunate, and it's something that if you're an Angels fan, you do have to just kind of you just kind of beside yourself for. So Angels really have not had a good go of it these past few years. This franchise really has not been great, and overall it is something that you are going to have to monitor for the rest of your time and just see what does happen with this franchise and see what happens with this Angels rotation. But there are still some good pieces here for this Angels team. It's just with Trout being out for the year, Sandoval being out for the year, it seems like that they just aren't going to compete. I've really expected them to, but I expect them to take a step up, and unfortunately they have not. So with the Angels now, again, I really haven't gotten much time to talk about them because they've just been bad, and since Trout was out, there really was no reason to talk about them. Ohtani left in the offseason, so really the big players, the big names, why you talk about the Angels really were not there anymore. So overall, the Angels are an interesting team. Again, I think there is a good core building there, better than people might expect and people might say. But at the same time, it still wasn't great, and there still wasn't a great amount of players. So overall, it is going to be interesting to see what the Angels do at the deadline. There are some pieces they could look to trade. I think Sandoval could have been a big one. But other than that, you could look at a guy like Brandon Drury. Drury hasn't had a good season this year with the Angels, but is in the last year of his contract. Provides some versatility on the infield and provides a good bat against lefty pitchers. And just good depth as well. I think if the Angels eat some of his contract, a team could look to end up adding Drury at this deadline and could look to trade for him. I think he's a really good player, even with what his numbers are showing. So I think that could be someone that gets something back for the Angels as well. Also, Joe Adell has been mentioned with the Angels in trading, which has been very, very interesting. Of course, Adell was a top prospect in baseball for a few years. I think was top 5 for a few years in a row, actually, with them. And just since he has come up, has not been the guy we expected and really has underperformed very much so. But apparently teams really like his potential, and with the Angels not really competing and maybe trying to shuffle this core around, they could look to trade Adell. And that could be a very interesting addition to some team. I think a team that really isn't in a lot of pressure right now to win could look to add Adell, maybe try to get his potential up and kind of, maybe finally get the Joe Adell out of him that we all expected at one point. So overall, it'll be a very, very interesting trade deadline to watch for this Angels team. I'll be very interested to see what does end up happening. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what does happen and who they do end up trading. Also, the bullpen, it should be an interesting one. They have trade pieces like Carlos Estevez, Matt Moore, who really is one of the bigger ones. Adam Simber could also be interesting. So overall, the Angels just, again, are very exciting. I didn't even mention Tyler Anderson, who I did a whole segment on. I think Anderson, again, could be a cheaper alternative to some of the pitchers that are going to be out there. Has 2 years left in his contract. Maybe will regress a little bit, but still is going to be a very solid addition to any team. Just a very solid veteran arm that you can count on, and is a player that just, again, doesn't make bad starts, just goes out there, throws the ball, eats innings, and for a price that he might be at for the Angels might eat his contract, I think he would be a good addition to any team. And I think that overall Anderson could end up being a good trade target for a few teams. Now, when you're looking at this Angels team, you really have to think about the future. What does the future hold for this team? What does the future look like for this franchise? And is there a glimmer of hope? Now, if you're an Angels fan, it seems like there's been no hope for the past few years now with this team and what really has been end up happening with them, especially now with Ohtani leaving in the offseason. We all expected it, but just the way they neglected that situation and didn't really seem to face reality with the fact that he was going to leave, didn't end up trading him, didn't end up getting the haul that we expected them to get, because they were just like, no, he's not going to leave. Just stupid and just a mismanagement. The Angels team, they still do have some pieces, don't really have any top prospects that you could look forward to right now. Nelson Rotter probably is their best one, I'd say, is a guy that I do think very highly of. I think he is very good. You also have some other guys like Caden Dana, Barrett Kent, Denzer Guzman, Dario Laverde. So there are some other pieces that could potentially be big in the future. But again, I think the guys already on the roster are going to be the big pieces. Mickey Moniak, Joe Adell if he stays there, Zach Neto, Nolan Schanuel, Logan O'Hoppe, these guys that have been first-round picks the past few years, top prospects for this franchise, and players that I do think can end up making a difference for this Angels team. So really, if I'm an Angels fan, I'm looking at those guys already on the roster to make big strides and be big parts of this Angels team. I think overall, these guys are going to end up being very big pieces for this Angels team and this Angels future, and I'm very interested to see what will end up happening with them and what the future does look like for them and how they do end up performing. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what is going to happen with this franchise and what happens with this team, and just, again, it's going to be a very interesting and exciting team to follow for the rest of the year, and I will be very interested to watch. So yeah, that is our fourth segment here for the day, going over Patrick Sandoval being out for the year with Tommy John surgery and just an overall outlook of the Angels as well. Moving into our fifth and final segment, which is going to be talking about some general news around the league, some topics that I didn't think were big enough to talk about as a full segment, but I still thought were significant enough to give my thoughts on and talk about. So yeah, going over that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye. And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fifth and final segment, which is going to be talking about some news around the league with baseball and some stories I did want to give my thoughts on. So yeah, obviously this is a segment where I talk about some not minor news stories, but smaller news stories that I couldn't really do a full segment on, but I still think were still important to talk about and were important enough where I did what I was very interested in them and want to talk about them. So yeah, let's get into it. There were some good amount of minor news and transaction-related stuff that did happen over the past 2 days or so did want to just give my thoughts on it. So first off, Nick Lodolo for the Reds, of course, one of their better pitchers, is going on the IL with a blister, which is a big blow for the Reds, I'd say. Lodolo has been on off the injured list just throughout this entire year, and at least this time he's going in the injured list with something that should be relatively short-term. Of course, blisters do happen a lot for pitchers as they're gripping baseballs all day, throwing baseballs, and using their fingers a lot. So blisters are a relatively common injury for pitchers. They do suck. I mean, as someone who's had a blister, it is not fun to have. It hurts a lot, and I can only imagine for someone whose job is to throw things, it makes it significantly harder, and it is extremely uncomfortable. So should be back after that 15 days. I don't really think there's going to be any long-term capabilities here with long-term effects with Lodolo here. I don't know why I'm struggling to think of the word there, but yeah, overall, the Reds, again, just I've talked about it a few times in the show. I expect them to win the Central. Have not been good this year, and really just it has been found out the entire year. It's just not their year. It is just not their year to compete with all the injuries they've had, with all the suspensions they've had, mainly Noelli Marte, Matt McLain, the injuries. So overall, just was in a very unfortunate year to be a Reds fan. A year I thought they would take big steps forward to be a really, really good team. Just unfortunate situations have happened where they weren't able to, and unfortunately will not end up being good this year. I really thought they would be very, very good. I talked about them so much in the offseason, but unfortunately have not been good this year, and unfortunate situations do happen, and just that's how sports work. Next, we have the Orioles. They did end up signing Garrett Cooper to a minor league contract. Cooper is, of course, a former All-Star with the Marlins, a pretty good first baseman with them, has bounced around the past few years now with the Padres, Cubs, Red Sox, and was ended up released this year by his last team. I think it might have been the Yankees. I'm not sure who it was. I don't think it was the Yankees, actually, but yeah, did end up signing to the Orioles on a minor league contract. I think Cooper provides some depth here with first base. Ryan O'Hearn has been very good, but doesn't hit lefties greatest, and I think if Cooper does end up coming up to the big leagues, that'll really be his big purpose, to be a platoon bat first or the corner outfield to end up playing against lefties. And overall, it's just a solid veteran bench bat. Is a guy who's been in the league for a little while, knows what he's doing, and again provides just some veteran leadership off the bench. Is just a good, solid guy to have on your team. Just again, is just very, very solid and a good player. So I think overall was a nice signing for the Orioles. Just a good overall depth move for them. And yeah, I think it's a very exciting move for them, and should be interesting to see if he does end up coming up and what should happen here. Chris Paddock was placed on the IL by the Minnesota Twins with shoulder fatigue, which is a big no-no if you are a Twins fan. Now, it seems like they're downplaying any possibility of it being large, but for Paddock, a guy who's had major arm injuries in the past few years, just had Tommy John coming over to the Twins, getting any type of shoulder injury is something that you have to hold your breath with. Paddock has been a big part of the rotation here for the Twins this year. Let a lot of players walk in the offseason, mainly Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda, and a lot of people were wondering about the rotation, but they always had these younger players like Paddock, like Simeon Woods Richardson, like Ober, like Louis Varland to end up filling in spots. But Paddock has done well, and him having a shoulder injury is not really a great sign, and you're just hoping it does not end up getting worse and it does not end up becoming a long-term thing for the Twins. It doesn't look like it will end up being, but at the same time, Paddock, I think, is going to be someone that we really have to follow if you're a Twins fan, and overall is going to be someone that you're really hoping does not end up having a major injury with this team. I think that Paddock is a really good pitcher and is a big part of this Twins team, and you're just really hoping that the shoulder injury doesn't sound as bad as it is. I mean, any shoulder injury is bad nowadays, so you're just really holding your breath that it's not as bad. Again, they're downplaying anything, but only they really know what's going on. But hopefully for the Twins and the Twins fans' sake, it is not bad. The Royals apparently are prioritizing bullpen help over outfield help at the deadline. I'm not sure which article this came from. I just wrote it down. There was a lot of articles that came out today, one from Ken Rosenthal, one from Jeff Passan, both about the trade deadline. Please, you should go and read those if you're a baseball fan. Both have such great insight always and such great thoughts on it. But if I'm a Royals fan, I would be happy with this. I think this makes the most sense. As much as the Royals do need outfield help as they do need corner outfield help, I think prioritizing the bullpen makes a lot more sense. Really, the identity of this Royals team has been pitching. Their starting rotation, as I said many times, is really, really fantastic. And the one thing that's been a problem with them is their bullpen. It really is not great. There are not a lot of great pieces here to like if you are a Royals fan. And I think with the amount of bullpen arms available at the deadline, mainly a guy like Tanner Scott, I think you should end up looking to get a bullpen arm, a big one at that, at this deadline. And I do think it is the right move to prioritize that over getting outfield help. Now, I do think the Royals should end up getting a hitter. I do think they do need help in the outfield. But at the same time, I think they can live without it for right now. There is some depth there. Nelson Velasquez was just optioned by them, so I think they still do have big hopes for him. It's just he hasn't had a great season this year, and if he can come up and be a big piece, that would really help. You're hoping Drew Waters can continue to do well. Kyle Isbell potentially as well, but you could also add a more minor piece like a Tommy Pham from the division rival White Sox. So there are some ability. There's still a way you can get an outfielder at this deadline. But I think prioritizing the bullpen over that makes sense for where you are with this team right now. Again, pitching has been your identity, and as much as your starting rotation has been fantastic, the bullpen is not great, and I think getting a big-time bullpen arm would really, really help you out and really end up helping out this team. So I think it is the right decision here for this Royals team, and is going to be something that really does end up helping them. The Dodgers have shut down Clayton Kershaw's rehab with shoulder soreness. Kershaw, of course, re-signed to the Dodgers on a one-year contract and is going to end up being a big part of the rotation in the second half when he does come back. The Dodgers are saying it's not serious. It's just, he's been pitching a lot recently, and he didn't really do that in the offseason or before because of injury, so it's just normal to have this kind of soreness. But again, really when you're at Kershaw's age, any type of shoulder injury, you're being very cautious of, and really type of any injury in general. So yeah, if I'm a Dodgers fan, I'm really hoping this isn't serious. Kershaw is going to be a big part of the rotation going into the second half. I do think he has a lot left still, and I think that he is a legend in this game. Could be his last year or so. I mean, we've said that for like 3 or 4 years, but overall, I do think there's a lot left with Kershaw. I think he's going to end up being a big part of this Dodgers team, especially now in their rotation with Yoshinobu Yamamoto being injured and being out for a significant amount of time. So yeah, definitely holding your breath here with this one. Doesn't seem to be that serious, as Dave Roberts said. He's just really downplaying the how serious it is. So that gives you hope if you're a Dodgers fan. But overall, Kershaw, I think, is going to end up being a big part of this Dodgers team come the second half, and hopefully there's no more injury scares if you are a Dodgers fan. Last but not least, some news that did break actually a few minutes before my show started, so I did end up having to add it last minute, but I'm glad it did happen because it is an interesting trade I want to talk about, and that is Dallas Keuchel. He was end up trading. He did end up getting traded to the Milwaukee Brewers from the Seattle Mariners. Now, I think a lot of people are wondering, Dallas Keuchel's still in the league? Yes, Dallas Keuchel is still in the league. I know a lot of people are wondering that, but yeah, obviously a big downhill fall from where he was for a few years ago, winning the Cy Young. Was not great with that White Sox contract and has floated around ever since, making a few starts for the Rangers last year. But yeah, overall, is a fine, solid depth move for the Brewers. They've needed some veteran pitching with the injuries they've had this year, and I think adding a guy like Keuchel, who just knows how to eat innings, knows how to pitch correct, I think is a good, solid move for this team. Mariners weren't going to use him with all the pitching they had, and I think having an opportunity for Keuchel to end up actually pitching in meaningful games for a good team like the Brewers is fun. And again, I just think Keuchel is a good, solid veteran arm that knows how to pitch well, knows how to eat innings. And with this Brewers team, with the amount of pitching injuries they have had, I think Keuchel is a good addition and will end up being someone that does help this team a lot. So, yeah. So, that is our show for today, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to not only get notified when I upload, but when all the other great content creators on this channel do. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. This is the end of our segment here, talking about some news around the league. So, yeah. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, and we'll see you at Baseball so that's tomorrow. Thank you guys, and bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that